Hello guys, welcome back to our front-end masterclass. So in today's video we are diving into CSS transitions and animations. These are tools that bring your websites to life and make them feel interactive and professional. We'll start with transitions, move into keyframe animations, and then build a practical skills section with animated progress bars. This is going to be fun. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's jump in. So as you can see here in my screen, I have VS Code and Chrome browser open. Okay, and I have this folder animations and transitions with two files inside of it as usual, my index and style.css. Okay, so let's start with transitions. Transitions are basically smooth changes from one step to another. Instead of instant changes, you get smooth animations. Let me show you an example with a button. I know you already knew it because I've been using it in most of the tutorials we have been doing so far, but still we have to cover it. Okay, so you know the deep understanding of it, how it works. Let me show an example with this button. Okay, so let me write some HTML. So I'm going to create a div with a class of container, and then let's say I'm going to create another one, demo section. Let's say it's two transition examples. Okay, so for the button, let me give it a class of basic btn. Okay, so let's say over me. Okay, cool. Now let's style this. I'll add the basic resets first. Okay, so let's move to our CSS file and add the basic CSS resets. We zero the margins and paddings and set the box sizing to border box. Okay, now let's select the body, give it a font family of, I'm going to use Inter. Okay, and also for the background, let's say F8FAFC. Okay, give it a mean height of 100 VH. Okay, and padding of 2M. So let's select the container, and I'm going to give it a max width of 1000, so 1200 pixels, right? And I'm going to center the container using the margin 0 order. Okay, so let's say if I add border solid like this, you'll see it's now in the middle of the screen, right? Now for the button, let me start styling it. Okay, select the basic btn, give it some background and black. Okay, so for the color of the text, let me give it white. right? So white text on red background. Let me add some padding and remove the border. Okay, so I'm going to add padding of 1 rem top and bottom, 2 rem left and right. Okay, and then remove the borders. So border none, right? Now let me add border radius and font size. Border radius 8 pixels and font size of 1 rem. Okay, and let me make the cursor a pointer. So right now, as you can see, it's not pointer, right? So let's say cursor pointer. Okay, so there you go. Now here's where the magic happens. Let me add the transition property. The transition all 0.3. At this point, nothing is new to you yet, right? Okay. So this transition property is what makes things animate smoothly. The all means animate everything that changes, right? And 0.3s is how long it takes, and is makes it smooth. It starts slow, speeds up, then slows down again. Now let me add the hover state so that we see the effect. Basic btn. So hover. Okay. I will change the background on hover. So let's say C5 30. Okay. So I added a darker red on hover, right? Can you see that? Let me add a transform to lift it up a bit. If you have been following my previous tutorials, you know we have been using all of this, right? So translate y minus 2 pixels. So this moves the button up by 2 pixels. That negative value moves it upwards, right? So like this. Can you see that? Okay. Now let me add some box shadow around it. So let's say I'm going to use RGBA 229 62 0.4. Okay, now this adds depth and makes it look like it's lifting up the page. Okay, can you see that? Can you see the effect? So this is transitions, right? Okay, so right now using all is convenient, right? But sometimes you want more control. Okay, as you can see, there are some tutorials that we have used this. In fact, we have used everything transitions, but I just didn't explain, I just used them, right? So let me show you how to target specific properties. Okay, now let's create another button and say button dot advanced btn. Okay, let's say I'm going to say specific targeting, or let me just say specific target. Okay, so let's get back to the CSS. Okay, advanced btn. So I'm going to give it a padding of 1 rem, 2 rem also, right? And also border radius of 8 pixels, and then the background color of let's say, so let me just use this color white, f size 1 rem, border none. Okay, so this is our second button, right? Let me add the cursor pointer to it also. Okay, alright, so right now, instead of, oh, let me use transition property. Okay, so let's say transition property, so this one. So let's say background color, and transform. Okay, so this tells CSS to only animate background color and transform. Nothing else will animate. Okay, now let's set the duration, and we set the duration using transition duration. Okay, as you know, we have been using the shorthand property of transitions. So the transition or 0.3 second is, we have been using the shorthand, okay, because it's easier. Now for the duration, let's say 0.5 is 0.5 seconds, right? Half a second for the animation. Now let me add the timing function. Transition timing function, right? Is in and out. So is in out starts slow, speeds up, then slows down at the end. Super smooth, right? Let me add some delay. You also have transition delay, right? So let's delay it for 0.1 seconds, right? So this makes it wait 0.1 seconds before starting the animation. Okay, so there is a shorthand way of doing this. Okay, so instead of writing them like this, you just need to write transition. Okay, so background color, we are still gonna target specific properties, right? So for the background color, 0.3 seconds is in and out, right? Let's say 0 seconds at the end. Okay, and then you add a comma, and let's add the second one, which is for the transform. So we want this to be 0.4 seconds is, right? And at the end, for the transition delay, we want it to delay 0.1 seconds. Okay, so this is a shorthand property. Okay, let me remove this. So this shorthand property carries the property, duration, timing, and then delay, then comma for the next one, right? Background animates in 0.3 seconds instantly, while transform animates in 0.4 seconds after 0.1 seconds delay, right? So this is how it works. So oops, I didn't even add the hover effect. So let's say advanced btn hover, right? Advanced btn hover, let's say background c53030, right? And the transform should be translate y minus 2 pixels. Okay, now let's test this out and see. Okay, can you see that? Can you see the effect? It's working perfectly, right? Now what I want to show you is the different timing functions, right? Because they really change how animations feel. Let me start with ease. Okay, so I'm going to create another buttons here. So let's say dot button dot ease btn, right? So for the ease btn, sorry, ease btn, yes. So let's say that is btn. I'm going to give it same styles that I gave on these ones. I guess let me just say, instead of writing all this code every time, let us just give them this special class. I'm going to copy this, paste them in here, and also this, right? Yeah, good. So what you're gonna do is, let's say, so for all the buttons here, let's add the class of btn to them. Okay, so there we go. So let us just add a class of btn to this one too. Okay, so right now it disappeared because we haven't the color. As you can see, for the btn, we give the text color to be white, right? So let's say background, maybe let me do something different this time. So 8b 5c f6. Okay, let me add the transition. Okay, so on hover, when a user hover over this button, I want it to scale. So I want it to scale by 1.1. Okay, so it should be, there should be 10% extra size, right? It should be 110%. So let's say scale 1.1. Okay, so can you see that? So right now ease is the default, right? It's that smooth acceleration and deceleration. Now let me try linear for you guys to see. So let's get back to our HTML, copy this down, and then linear btn. Okay, actually I'm just gonna comment out all of those. Okay, so linear btn, let me give it some background color, so ec4899. Okay, now let me use, for the transition I'm going to use linear timing this time around. So let's say, sorry, transition transform. Okay, 0.5 s linear, right? So on hover, so when a user hover over it, we want it to scale by 1.1, right? So let's test it out and see. Okay, can you see it? Now linear is constant speed, right? The whole way, no acceleration. It can feel a bit robotic, but it's useful sometimes, right? So this is how it works. So it's all going to happen around 0.5 seconds, right? Without the acceleration and deceleration. Okay, now let me show you ease in. So this is this thing, right? I show you ease and linear. Let me show you. Let's add another btn here. Okay, so let's say ease in. Okay, now let me copy the class name, ease in. Okay, so this is linear. Okay, so for the ease in, I'm going to give it a background color of, let's say F59E0B. Okay, so right now let me add the ease in. Not transform, transition. Okay, transform. Okay, so can you see how ease in works? You see that? You see the effect, right? Ease in starts slow, right? Then it accelerates like a car starting to move, right? You can see the effect clearly. You can see the difference. Actually, let me uncomment this one out for you to see all of them. So this is ease, linear, and ease in, right? So let's do ease out, ease in and out. right? So for the is out btn, let me copy it. So for the is out btn, let me give it a background color of this 14bh a6. Okay, and the transition, the same thing, transform 0.5s is out, right? So when a user hover over it, okay, so let's see. Can you see it? I know to notice the effect is actually, it's not like, I don't know how to tell this, but let me instead give it 1 second. Can you see the effect? Yeah, I think it's better, right? So each out starts fast, as you can see, then it slows down, right? And the coolest one of them all is cubic bezier. let me let me say, we have never used this before. Actually, even in my projects, I'm not using this. Okay, but the fact is, when you go to advanced stuff, you stop to write normal css like this, right? There are many css frameworks out there like Tailwind CSS, which is the most popular and the most used one actually in the development world right now. Tailwind CSS, right? There is Bootstrap, there is Materialize, and lots of them, but professional developers mostly use Tailwind CSS because it gives you more flexibility, right? So you can edit the low-level codes instead of pre-made components that look the same on each and every site. So for this button, let's say custom btn. Okay, let me copy the class name. Let's say cubic bezier. Okay, so let's say for the custom btn, let's give it a background. Let me add some margin between the buttons here. So just come here and say margin 15. Okay, so there we go. So cubic bezier, let's add the transition. So transform 0.6s and then cubic, right? Cubic bezier. Okay, so let's say the first one should be 0.60h, right, minus 0.55, 0.265, we added our cubic bezier here, as you can see, right? So what this does is it creates a bounce effect that negative value, right? So this 0.55 minus 0.55 there, it makes it overshoot and bounce back. You can create any timing curve you want, right? Let's try that and see. Oh, sorry, I haven't even added this thing, the transform property. Okay, can you see that? So this is cubic beziers, right? Now let me show you how to animate multiple things with different timings. This creates really nice effects. Okay, now let me create a card here to demonstrate this example. So I'm going to add a div with a class of cards, right? So let's say background of, sorry, I'm writing CSS inside of my listing, my HTML. So background white, okay, padding of 2 rem. Let me add some border radius, width of 300 pixels, and let me add some shadow around it. Now let me add some contents inside the card. So let's say it's 3, let's say transitions, and then paragraph, not 50, 15. Okay, so select the card and the P, give it some line height for spacing. Okay, so padding top of 10 pixels. Okay, there we go. Now let me add multiple transitions around this card. So select this and take it to the top. Okay, so let's say transition transform 0.3 seconds is right, and then comma. So for the box shadow, we want 0.3 seconds is 2, right? And background, we want the background to be 0.5 seconds is right. So transform and shadow animate quickly, right? But background changes slowly. So this creates a layered effect. So on hover dot cut on hover, let me do this, right? So transform, let's say translate y minus 10 pixels, okay, and then rotate 2 degrees. Rotate 2 degrees, okay. So this moves it up and rotates it slightly. Can you see that? Can you see the effect? Now let me change the shadow. So okay, box shadow, yes. So box shadow, we want 0, 20 pixels, 40 pixels, RGBA 0.15. Okay, so I added bigger shadow for more depth, right? So can you see it? Now let me add some gradient too. So for the background, linear gradient 135 degrees, right? 667 EEA, okay, and then 764 BA2. So all three animates at different speeds, right? Let's check it out and see. Can you see that? That's really cool, right? So the color of the text, we want it to be white when it's on hover. Can you see it? So this is how transitions work, okay. Alright, transitions are great for hover effects, but what about complex animations that play automatically? So that's where keyframes comes in, okay. So keyframes, the way keyframes work is that, actually let's create a keyframe and I'll explain it in a minute, okay. Okay, so keyframes, can you see the syntax? So the name keyframe and then an identifier, right, and then curly braces where you define your frames. So for the identifier, let's say I'm gonna use slide in. Let's say slide in, okay. So see, this thing CSS keyframes, they are like making a mini movie for your element, right? You set scenes like 0%, 50%, 100%, and tell the browser what the element should look like in each scene, right? And when the animation runs, the browser plays through those scenes smoothly, okay. So basically keyframes mean steps of an animation. You describe the points, the browser handles the motion, okay. So let's check it out and see. I'm going to add this. let me set let me set this let me set the starting state, okay. So let's say from. So from, right, let's say transform scale, sorry, translate x minus 100%, right, and opacity of 0. So at the start it's off screen to the left and invisible, right? Now for the ending state, let's say to transform translate x 0 and the opacity 1. So at the end it's in normal position and fully visible, right? That's the animation. Now let me use it on an element. Okay, let me use it on an element. So let's create another card below. Actually I'm just gonna copy this and paste it down. I'm gonna change the class name, or let me just say slide in. Okay, so let's say slide in. Oops, let me just remove this class here. Okay, so for slide in, let's say width of 200 pixels, height of 100 pixels, border radius of 10 pixels, right, and the background, let's say A53. Okay, actually let me just remove this content here. Let me cut this one out. Okay, let me remove this one too, we don't need them at all. Okay, now let me connect it to the animation. Okay, so you just say animation name like this. So slide in. Okay, so this links it to our slide in keyframes. So let's set how long it runs. So let's say animation duration, I want it to run for 1 second from start to finish. Let's add the timing. So animation timing function, as you can see the effect is already taking place in our browser. Let's say is out. Okay, so it's out makes it slide in and slow down smoothly, right? Can you see the effect? So this is CSS keyframes, right? So there is also percentage keyframes. Apart from the first method I shown you here using the from to, there is also percentage keyframes, right? So percentage based keyframes gives you more control. Instead of just from and to, you can set exact points, right? Now let's create a bounce. So let's say add keyframes bounce. Okay, so at the start, so 0%, let's say transform translate y, right? 0. So no movement at the start. So when it's 25%, we want transform translate y minus 30 pixels. Okay, so it should jump up halfway through, right? And at 50%, okay, we want it to go back to 0 again. Okay, so it should back down. So at 75, like this. I hope you're understanding this syntax. So at 75, you want it to move up again. So transform translate y 15 pixels minus 15 pixels, right? So some smaller bounce, and when it's at 100%, you want it back to normal. Okay, so this creates a realistic double bounce effect, right? Now let me use this animation. So I'm going to create a div here with a class of bounce ball. Okay, so bounce ball, you want width of 80 pixels, height of 80 pixels too. Okay, and the background color of, let's say, 3B 82 F6. Okay, and the border radius, you want it to look like a real ball. Okay, so border radius 50%. Let me comment out those stuff above it. Okay, so you can now see it clearly. Actually, let me comment out the buttons too. Okay, so let me apply the animation name bounce, right? Let me just finish typing them. Animation duration 1 second. Okay, now let's make it repeat. So let's say we have this animation property called animation iteration count infinite, right? So if you set infinite, it loops forever. You can also use numbers like 3 or 5. Okay, now let me set direction animation direction. So let's say alternate. So what alternate makes it does is it makes it play forward, then backward, then forward, right? A continuous smooth motion. So let me give it the correct name and see. Okay, can you see it? Can you see the ball bouncing? So this is CSS animations for you, right? So we also have animation fill mode. This is very important. Fill mode controls what happens before and after the animation, right? Now let me create an example. So let's say dot fill. Okay. So for the fill, let me give it width of 100 pixels, height of 100 pixels. So background of no background of 10B 981. Okay. Now let me add an animation on this. So we are going to use the first animation we created. Animation name. So slide in like this. Animation duration 1 second. We also have animation delay 0.5 seconds, right? Now let's set the fill mode. Animation fill mode. Right? Let's say forwards. So what forwards means it keeps the final styles after animation ends, right? Without this, it will snap back to the start. Okay. Okay. So let's check that out and see. Can you see that? Let me stop this ball from bouncing, please. Okay. There we go. So margin border of 15 pixels. Okay. Yeah. So this is animation fill mode. So we also have the shorthand for it, just like transitions, right? So let me add another div here and give it a class of shorthand. Okay. So width of 100 pixels, height of 100 pixels. Okay. Let me comment out this. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to add the animation. So right now I'm going to write everything in one line. Okay, so let's say animation. For the animation name, slide in, and the duration 1 second, and the function is in and out 0.5 seconds delay, and we want this to run forever, right? Alternate and both. Okay, so that's name, duration, timing, delay, iteration count, direction, fail mode, right? Super convenient. So this is the this thing, the shorthand property. Okay, so this runs forever if you use infinite. Okay, now I don't want us to just build blue boxes like this, so let's build something practical, a skills section with animated progress bars. Maybe you visited some professional developers portfolios and you will see skills section with like HTML 95% and stuff like that. Now we are going to build something like it. Okay, so I'm going to comment out all of our HTML. Okay, okay, so skills section. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating a section with the class of skills section. Yes, and then I'm going to create another div with the class of skills header. Yes, okay, so h2, let's say technical skills. Okay, so here is what I'm proficient in. Okay, so after that create another div with the class of skills container. Okay, actually I'm just going to paste the remaining HTML, so I don't want the video to be so long. Okay guys, so let me just paste them right away. Okay, so here as you can see we have this div with the class of skill item, and then skill info, right? And then span with the class of skill name, and span with the class of skill percentage. And then we have progress bar and progress field divs, right? So we have Okay, as you can see, we have like 5 of them, right? So this is the first one, second one. So this is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and Node.js. Okay, perfect. Now let's start the styling. Okay, so let's start with the skills section class. So let's say skills section. I'm going to give it a max width of 900 pixels and then margin of 60 pixels order, right? Margin of 60 pixels, then order, then padding of 3 rem, background white, okay, and also some kind of a box shadow. Let's say box shadow 0, 10 pixels, 40 pixels, RGBA 0.1. Okay, can you see that? And also let me add some border radius here. So border radius of 10 pixels, or 20, sorry. Okay, so let's grab the skills header. Skills header, so this one right here. Okay, let's give it a font size, sorry, text align of center. Okay, and also margin bottom of 3 rem. Okay, so let's grab the h2. So the technical skills, and I'm going to give it a font size of 2.5 prime. Okay, and also let me give it some color. Okay, there you go. Now select the paragraph and let's give it some color code. 71, 80, 96. Okay, and also margin bottom of 0.5. No, actually let me, there is no need for margin bottom here because there is nothing below it. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a font size of 1.1 rem. Okay, now let's grab the skills container. Okay, so let's display it to flex. Okay, flex direction, column, right, and gap 2 rem. Okay, so select each skill item. So for each skill item, we want width of 100%. Okay, now let me make them visible at first. Okay, invisible, sorry. Okay, so 0%, right? Animation, animation name, fade slide up. Okay, and notice I'm using some kind of a word text here. So capital, mixing capital and small letters. This is called camel case, right? If you came to JavaScript, you will use that a lot. Okay, so let's see. Actually, I'm just going to use the shorthand property. So 0.8 seconds is in and out, and then forwards. Okay, so this will make them fade in and slide up, right? The forwards keeps them visible after animation. Now let me create that animation. Okay, so at keyframes, so fade slide up, right? So actually let me do this like this. So from opacity 0, transform, translate y 30 pixels, right? And then 2, opacity of 1, okay. So they started invisible at and 30 pixels down, right? And they ended visible at normal position. Now let me stagger them so they appear one by one. Okay, so let's say skill item. So the first one, let's right, end of type 1. Okay, actually let me just use end child. I guess you already know how to use all of this by now, because I've created a class, different video dedicated to just them, right? So let me add some delay. So let's say 0.1 seconds. Okay, so the first one starts after 0.1 seconds, right? So the second one, end child, animation, animation delay 0.2 seconds, right? So let me just copy this. Okay, so 4, right? Oops, sorry, this is 3, and then this is 4, so this is 5. Okay, so each one appears 0.1 seconds after the previous one. This is cascading effect, right? Now let's select the skill info and style it. Okay, so actually let me remove this for us to see what we're doing. Okay, so skill info, display, flex, justify content, so space between. Okay, and also margin bottom of 0.8 units. Okay, so let's select the skill name, font weight of 600, font size of 1.1 rem, and the color of okay, there we go. Select the skill percentage, give it a font weight of 602, right? Give it font size of 1.1 rem, and then for the color you give it E5 3E3. Okay, so we used our red for the percentage, right? Now let's work on the progress bars. So select the progress bar, so this one right here, this div. Okay, a progress bar, let's give it a width of 100%, height of 30 pixels, and then background of E2 E2EFH0. Okay, so border radius of 50 pixels. Okay, as you can see, our skill section is starting to take shape, right? Now let me add overflow shading to it. Okay, so this keeps everything inside, right, with clean edges. Now let me make it relative, so we are going to position it relatively. Okay, for the positioning effects inside. Now for the actual field, let's select progress field, right? Give it a height of 100%, background, linear gradient, so linear gradient 90 degrees, E3, right? So this first color here, you want it to be at 0%, and the second one should be FC8181, right, at 100%. Okay, so red gradient from dark to light, right? Let's add some border radius. Okay, so let me make it relative. Okay, so let's say animation. Let me add the animation. So the name of the animation should be field progress, right? 1.5 seconds, ease out, forwards. So this will fill the bar over 1.5 seconds, right? Now let's create that animation. I'm going to comment it out for now. So at keyframes, field progress, from width of 0, opacity of 0, right, to opacity of 1. So it started at 0 with an invisible and invisible, right? The final width comes from the individual classes. Now let me set its skills width. Okay. Okay guys, so our technical skills section is starting to take shape, right? You see it. It's starting to look good, right? So right now what I'm gonna do is I want to add the each skills width, right? So they fill. So for that we are going to create special classes for each field. So the first one here for the HTML, let's say HTML field, right? For CSS, we add CSS field. For JavaScript, we add JavaScript field. And then React, and then the last one, node field. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is select the HTML field first. So the width should be 97, right? 97%. Okay, can you see that? So .css field 83%, right? Width of 83%. .js like this. JavaScript field, so let's say 79%. Okay, so React is So react fill is 75, right? And then the last one, not fill, right? Which is 70, right? Okay, there you go. So what I'm gonna do next is right now I'm going to add a cool shine effect, right, that sweeps across. Okay, but first let's uncomment our animation here so that you should see the effect. So the fill effect. Okay, that's really cool, right? Let's reload again. Yeah, correct. Okay, let me add a cool shine effect that sweeps across. So let's select progress fill after, right? So content like this. So let's position it. I'm going to position it to absolute. Okay, top 0, left 0, right 0, bottom 0. Okay, so it covers the whole bar, right? Now let me add a gradient for the shine. So linear gradient 90 degrees, right? So I want it to be transparent 0%, and then RGBA 255, 255, 255, and then 0.4, right? So this should be 50%. Okay, and then transparent again 100%, right? So this creates a white shine in the middle, right? Let's animate it too. Shine for 2 seconds, ease in and out, infinite. Okay, so it keeps shining, right? Let's create the shine animation. So 0%. So at start, transform, translate x minus 100%, right? So off screen to the right, right? And then at 100%, we need this to be 100%. Okay, can you see it? so it keeps shining, right? Now what I'm gonna do is there is something that I left, so I think I almost forgot. So this one right here. Okay, can you see how they all came on top after 0.1 seconds? Good. So let me add one more effect, the gentle pause. So select the progress field, animation, okay, animation. So let's say field progress 1.5 seconds, ease out, forwards, right? Then pulse 2 seconds, ease in and out, and in 1.5 seconds infinite. Okay, so I added two animations, right? So the fill happens first, then after 1.5 seconds the pulse starts looping, right? Now let's create the pulse. Add keyframes, pulse. Okay, so at the start and end, can also do it like this. So you want the box shadow, so the box shadow to be 0 0 0 on all sides, and then RGBA this one. Okay, so no glow. Okay, so at the middle 50%, we want the box shadow to be so 0 0 0 8 pixels, RGBA 229 62 62 0.4. Okay, so the glowing ring expands outward, right, like heartbeat effect. So I think that's pretty much for our progress bars for our technical skills section. Okay, so right now the only problem we have is this is not responsive. Okay, not that it's not responsive completely, but there are some things I just need to change. Okay, so let's get back to our CSS. I'm going to create a media query here. So at media max width 768 pixels, so we'll target tablets and mobile phones, right? So the skills section, we want padding of 2 rem and then 1.5 rem. Okay, and also we need some margin around it, so 30 pixels and then 20 pixels left and right. Okay, and for the skills header we want to reduce the font a bit. Okay, so skills header h2. Normally the font is font 2.5, right? So 2 rem only. Okay, yeah, and also select the skill name, skill percentage. Okay, give them a font size of 1 rem. So let's select the progress bar and I'm going to give it a height of 25 pixels. Okay, so I think that's it, right? So let's check the responsiveness on mobile device, and yeah, it's totally responsive, right? It's completely responsive. Let's check on different devices. Yeah, perfect. Now let's check on iPads. Yeah, this looks even more beautiful, right? Surface Do. So the name of this extension is I think Mobile Simulator, right? And let's try MacBook. Okay, so on laptops. So, and there we have it. We have covered CSS transitions and animations, and we have built a beautiful skills section, right? Now let's recap what we covered. We covered transitions for smooth changes for hover effects, right? Timing functions is linear, cubic bezier for different fields, keyframe animations for complex multi-step animations, and we also learned about animation control, so controlling the duration, iteration, direction, fill mode, etc. And also for the skills section, we learned how to create progress bars with fills, shine, and pause effects, right? So use transitions for interactive elements like buttons and cards. Use animations for things that needs to play automatically or loop. Combine them together for amazing effects. Try adding these to your projects. Animate everything: buttons, cards, navigation, forms, etc. Animations make it all feel professional. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next tutorial, which will be on responsive web design. So goodbye and happy coding. Make sure you practice a lot.